Hey everybody, Carm Capriato. It's a Carmcast noon Eastern time. It's Tuesday. It's a special day because there's so much going on in our world of COVID-19, the pandemic, and I decided to bring a great panel together to talk about the CARES Act and the SBA loan application, and everyone looking to get on board for the Payroll Protection Program, the PPP, and the EIDL. With me is Kelly Weatherby, co-owner with husband Lee in Accurate Automotive, Mesa, Arizona. Hey.
Hello, good morning.
Nice to see you, Kelly. Andy Bishop's with us from Midwest Performance Cars in Chicago. Or are you in Chicago or Dallas?
I am in Chicago.
Good. Okay. And Keith Katz is with us from Quality Service Center, York, PA. Hey, Keith.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good to see you. And Kareem Morsley from Winkler Automotive in Gaithersburg, Maryland, who always seems to appear with us on the Geek Talk series that we do. Hi, Kareem.
Hi there. How are you?
Nice to see you. Well, look at sympathy to anyone in the aftermarket that has lost a loved one over COVID-19. My heart goes out to you. Unbelievable times that we're having. The thing that I kind of do like is there is some national unity that I'm feeling, and especially in the automotive aftermarket here, as we are an essential business and we're all trying to figure out how to be relevant inside of our communities. A lot of great stuff going on there. I also want to give, and I haven't done this yet in any of my special COVID broadcasts, an unbelievable, heartfelt high five to every healthcare worker, first responders, the heroes, the doctors, and the nurses. They're in harm's way, and we thank them for what they're doing, and for all the retired people coming out, that retired healthcare workers that are there to help. And finally, the financial challenges that we're facing as an industry. Business in some cases is down, and I've talked to a couple of guys, it's down 40%. Some guys are okay. Even though we're a relevant business, people don't want to go out because they're afraid of not having a quality touchless experience. So with that said, here comes the CARES Act, and we're here to talk about it. Now, every one of my guests has applied for it. They each have their own experience, stuff that they'd love to share. And I'd like to get the dialogue going with Andy. Andy, tell us about your CARES Act.
Sure. So in preparing for this, I put together a timeline of what my experience was, and as well as actually interviewing my banker for a brief moment yesterday to get some of their input. So March 27th, my bank asked for 7 different documents. March 29th, they asked for 10 more documents. On March 30th, they asked for 4 more documents. And by the time I actually filed the application, I ended up only needing about 4 or 5 of all of those documents that they had asked for. Now, they were asking because what they were seeing was changing day to day and sometimes within the day. So they were like trying to get papered up completely. And here's the thing that's really key that people need to understand. I want to get out there. The banks are the ones who are ultimately responsible for these loans. So yes, the government's backing the loan. The government's giving the bank the money for the loan at an extremely low interest rate. And the bank is now lending it out at also a very low interest rate. But if the bank doesn't do their due diligence and verify the numbers that we are giving them, that they're legitimate numbers, the SBA can come back when we apply for the loan to be forgiven. The SBA can come back and look at those numbers and say, those were phony numbers. We're not forgiving the loan. It's on you. Now the bank owns a very low interest loan that was made based on phony numbers. So I'm seeing a lot of criticism of people of their banks. But people need to understand that the bank is an intermediary here that has risk on the line. Just because it's a government program, it doesn't mean the bank, this is a risk-free thing for the bank. And it's actually a pretty low revenue thing for these banks too. They're not making much money even if the program goes really well. So that's a something that people need to understand with the banks. Having said that, the other thing is, if there was ever an instance where the importance of having a relationship with a bank was important, this is it. Because think about it, you know, my bank, I have a commercial loan with them already. There's not a lot of revenue to be gained. There's risk here. These are not loans that they really would be going out to solicit to make anyway, but they're doing it because we have a customer relationship, because they already know my numbers. They know my business.
So, gang, if I walk in with a profit and loss statement, Andy, was that one of the requirements?
That was one of the requirements, and it turned out not to be a requirement in the final submission.
Really?
Yes. The final submission was basically forms 940 and 941, which are payroll forms. Also payroll for January and February of 2020, just to show what you're doing. I didn't have to give him any summary of operating expenses. I had to give him my tax return. But there were a whole bunch of things, that articles of incorporation, bylaws, those were all asked for early on, and I never had to submit them with that application.
So your tax return is going to show a profit or a loss, and
Sure.
But it doesn't. Since you're applying for payroll protection program, you don't necessarily have to be credit worthy.
Well, right. There's no personal guarantee. That's the other thing. There's no personal guarantee on these loans. So the bank really is hung out to dry if they don't verify that your numbers are real numbers.
So they're going to do homework on you. I mean, if
Yeah.
if they know you well, they've got documents, they've got a track record, right?
Right.
So they're gonna be able to write the, check the risk box, either good or bad, because ultimately, if something goes south or sour, they're on the hook.
They're on the hook. And the other thing that they told me that I didn't know, there are designated SBA people at banks that's what they do, is they do all the SBA submissions. So think about it, a medium-sized bank, or even a huge bank, they have maybe 10% of their people are SBA people, or maybe less. All of a sudden they have 50,000 applications for these loans. So they're trying to bring on additional staff to do SBA submissions. Okay. They're hitting a program that was never designed for these kind of numbers. And the fact that anybody's getting through, on Saturday, they had processed 85,000 of these countrywide. On Monday, they were up to 129,000.
Yeah.
So I'm no fan of, cheerleader for the banks, but this is a massive program. One of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast was because I was seeing in some of the groups on Facebook, people saying, this is a scam. There's never a dollar going to come out of this. This is like all kinds of conspiracy theory things. This is a huge, huge undertaking that, I haven't gotten my approval yet, but I'm in the process. So
how long did they say, Andy?
They're still queued up putting applications in.
Okay.
But they're pretty confident that the money's going to come out. It's not going to take 6 months, but it's
okay. I want to move on to something. By the way, anybody in the Facebook stream and or YouTube can offer a question to this panel. Greg Buckley's got a comment, and he said, "Didn't the Fed just say they were going to backstop these loans no matter what?" And there's an article from Reuters. It's there. It's in the comment line. Anyone could probably click on it and check that out. So thanks for offering that up to us, Greg. And if that's the case, that must mean that the banks will have a lot less risk, Andy. And you know what? This thing is dynamic and fluid. It seems to be changing almost every day. The act is in play, yeah, but how it's being processed, and as I think we see the risk that's going to come from, whichever end, if it's the federal government that's going to take it all, which in my opinion, it's probably the right thing to do. The bankers, in my opinion, are just, in the SBA, are just a conduit for this money, right? Yeah.
Right.
Kelly, how about you?
Well, I've had a good experience so far, and I kind of equate it to like I'm waiting for the boy to call me. Back in the 70s, we didn't call boys, they called us, and that's kind of where I'm at. I had my process, mine has like a timeline from my bank. And I couldn't agree with you more, Andy, that your relationship with your banker, if you haven't had one, this is a really good wake-up call that you better start getting that, you know, in the pipe. I have a great relationship with a small community bank, and they are able to process these kinds of loans, because from what I've heard also is some banks are not they're not able to process it, so you have to go to a new bank and fill out get a new account, and that's going to be tough because they don't know you and you don't know them, and it's going to be a harder road to hoe. So anyway, I had my application in process go to the application received, and now it's gone to processing. So after that, it goes the last two is with borrower, and then the final review, and then funding. So in addition to some of the things that Andy talked about his bank needing at the last, I did this morning at 7 a.m. get what paperwork or documents my bank is going to need, because I've been kind of anticipating too. And so I've been having the accountant send info and the payroll company send info, and I've just been compiling this, you know, any and all things I could think of. In addition to what Andy was talking about, my bank has asked for documentation that I have paid for workman's comp and garage liability. They want to have proof that I've paid for those insurance policies. So that was kind of surprising, because I hadn't heard anything about that. And then of course a 1099 if I'm the sole proprietor, which I'm not. So you might have to put those together. And W-3s. I didn't hear you, Andy, say that they asked you for W-3s. So for 2019.
So Andy, your comment here is her bank is asking for different things than you've had to submit.
Sure.
So it seems to be a bank by bank issue, right?
Remember, like I said, the bank is an intermediary here that is left holding the risk. Right. If the loan has to be made on legitimate numbers.
It seems like there's a lot of chatter that I do want to put up in Facebook about the fact that if the bank is off the line and when they forgive it, but after everyone speaks, we'll go through some of these Facebook comments and get some other experiences up here within the group. But so interesting, which means we can't even do a show that says this is all you need to have, walk into your banker and you're okay, since every bank seems, as you said, Kelly, and comparing it to what Andy said, right, everything is different. But I think over preparing may be in order.
That's right.
How about you, Karim?
Well, for me, it's been really all about. I started this process really by actually starting looking and reading the bills as they were coming through, because I was like, get it from the horse's mouth. I'm not gonna, wait to find out some thread in Facebook. So my number one thing for all, especially with this whole thing about COVID, anyways, is make sure that your sources for information is reliable. Do not get it from secondhand or third hand or however many hands you're getting it from. Just get it from the source. My process started with the EIDL application, which was before the CARES Act. And it's funny, I was looking at the dates for this show, and I just realized that it's only been a week, and it feels like it's been a whirlwind of time already. But I put my application on the 29th for the EIDL, which is the emergency fund. I got a confirmation 2 days later, and then 2 days later, they told me that I could apply for the emergency $10,000, which will go automatically towards your CARES loan if you do get one, as a grant. So after that, I've been talking with my bankers. To Andy and Kelly's point, absolutely, important that you have a relationship with your banker at this time. If you don't have one, it's never too late, but it's probably not going to play in your favor compared to those who have taken the time to do that with their bankers. But I applied for the PPL formally on the 2nd, and here's what I mean on the 2nd, even though it was open on the 3rd. My bank told me, hey, Kareem, this is the information you need. And again, to Andy's point, every bank is on the hook. They're going to have different degree of willingness to take on risk. They're going to have different requirements for the information. The only information that the SBA really needs is payroll proof, so W-3s, anything of that sort. They need to see your utilities bills, So they'll want to see your, how much were your utilities, and they're going to want to see, and they want to know what your rent was. But at the end of the day, because this money is going to go out the window really quickly with a lot of rubber stamping probably, I will urge everybody that's planning on doing the PPL, make sure you got your ducks in a row, because there will be audits like never before on this money after the dust settles.
Sure.
And this has come to me as a warning, gentle warning. I don't have any reason to be warned anyways, but it was a gentle warning from 2 different banks that I deal with. And so, they're going to be on the hook, but the government is going to come after anybody who's going to abuse of that system. But, I submitted my application then formally on the 3rd. I was told everything is great, everything's kosher, super, you got it. We're going to put it in the queue. And then on Saturday morning, my banker calls me around 12 and tells me, Kareem, I'm really sorry. And at first I was like, oh, great, right. This guy's come crashing. And he goes, I'm going to have to ask you to redo your submission because the SBA changed the rules on us on Friday at 2 p.m. And now they want us to use a certain portal that we had to design in Haryana. So I'm in the queue. I got confirmation today. I've been pounding the doors. I know they're super busy, but I told them all I need to know, guys, is just let me know where I stand. I've been accepted, but I'm not officially in the SBA queue for the CARES Act loan. I'm still inside the Sandy Spring because they have to submit it to the system, to the SBA. And my understanding was that system was down yesterday nationwide because of oversubscription and just not able to handle the volume. But, again, just be cognizant, like Andy said, I don't care what people think about bankers. At the end of the day, it's a love-hate relationship. You need them. If you don't have them, you're going to sink. But whether business is good or bad, but please realize these guys are doing an amazing job right now in the sense that it's never been done before. And I know my branch has been nonstop 24/7 since Friday.
Amazing.
So these people are really understand. And we're not the only small businesses that they take care of. They take care of restaurants, of florists, of what you name it. And they all understand that if these businesses fall, there's a lot more that's going to fall. So they have, they're looking out.
Your point is so well taken. Way back in the day, the banking relationship that our family business had was so strong. I mean, the bank was really a centerpiece of the community. I mean, just no different than how I believe your businesses should be. They were involved in everything, and a lot of younger operators, and I hope we get to them, need to realize the value and the importance of that. A question that I have for the panel, and Kareem, as I was listening to you, and maybe you can confirm this, asking for rent and utilities probably just wants to legitimize that you're an official real business, even though he knows you. But, it's got to be on the form, because if someone walks in and they're not paying rent, they don't have utilities, they don't have some of these other costs, you may necessarily not be a real business.
Fair. It's very fair. And again, and I think he knows I'm a real business. He's been to my shop. The vice president of the SBA department in that bank has been to my shop as well. They've seen it. I think they want to be consistent across the board with everybody.
Sure.
So that, they will ask. But again, to Andy's point, it's very much bank to bank to bank, I think, because the second bank I talked to is handling it very differently. So to each bank its own approach, I think, on this one.
There's a comment here from Mike Allen. He was kind of conversing back and forth with Greg. They're buying loans once they're written up to free liquidity for more loans, which sounds very smart. Doesn't the bank also make 3 to 5 for writing the loan? I mean, I don't know that as in this particular instance, but maybe
Not in this instance.
not in this instant. Okay.
So the Fed, the Treasury is lending the money out at 3 basis points, which is basically 3/100%.
Wow.
Nothing. The bank's charging 1%, so the bank's making almost 1% on the loan, but they're very limited as to what they can make, and they can't charge these fees. Brokers are charging fees, but your bank should not be charging fees.
And also, there were some guidelines. I was fortunate enough, and I don't know if they're still enforced or not, or still valid, but as of Friday, there were some guidelines that basically stated that whoever is the agent working on the behalf of the company submitting for the SBA loan is entitled to a fee. And that agent can actually be yourselves as a company. So if you have an accountant or a bookkeeper on your payroll, that money is due to you. So just there's so many little intricacies in this process. And we'll probably only know so much until the dust settles. But right now, the banks are just concerned about getting the money out.
We may be premature in having this Carmcast, but I wanted to do this for the sheer fact of getting, no matter how dark or cloudy it seems, for the future, the encouragement to get in line, to get the process happening, to share your experiences. We would hope, and I would hope, it would motivate someone not to be so, figuring that they have to climb an Everest in order to get this done. And no doubt there's a lot of differences between banks, but the issue is do it, because my guests have. Ron IPAC wrote up, he says, your banker and your relationship with them is the biggest factor in the info that they need. I only need to provide minimal documentation for them. John Bridgewater, who's going to be with us tomorrow on a Carmcast. Look at this. My banker called me yesterday saying I'm approved and will see my PPP money by Friday. As he says, I'll believe it when I see it, but I'm hopeful. And John, please reach out and let us know if it really did happen. He also followed up, not the amount I was expecting, but enough to squeeze by on.
That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Because you have to fill out your 2.5 multiplier, right?
Right.
So you put a dollar amount in there. I was kind of wondering if they were going to, that was just a guideline, or if they would, loan up to that. So that's I'd be very interested, to see who wins the race and gets the money, and also what kind of money they're getting.
What about that 10,000? Did you guys all apply for that?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I haven't seen any of it.
All righty.
Same as Kareem. I have a confirmation number. That's it.
That's what I have too.
Right.
Okay, good.
One other thing I would encourage people to do is also look at your state level and county level, because they do have grants. I know that we have at state and county level, availability of other funds that are independent of the federal. So, but to your point, Karen, I want to add this. Any shop that's listening to this, hopefully you already have that information. You just got to go through the process. Be patient. Go through the process. Gather the information they want. But you already have it. You should have it. If you've got QuickBooks running your behind the scenes for your business, and you've got your licenses straight, and you should have that information handy, or within a day's worth of work. Mm-hmm. But it's really worth doing it. And I think it's gonna be a long time before we see the dust settle from all this. It's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kareem. Keith, I know you've been patient. Keith Katz, York, PA. Tell us about your story.
Well, it's not much different, I guess. I talked with my banker, actually got a hold of me last Wednesday, said, here's the form you need, fill this out. Here's all the other information we need from you. Get it to me Friday, 9 a.m. I can't take it before then. So I had everything ready to go. Friday at 9 a.m., I pushed the send button and off it went. And 15 minutes later, he sends me an email back. Oh, there's been some changes. Just hold on a second. And so he got back to me that afternoon. Here's the update. So I went through the changes with him. One of the things that I thought was kind of ironic that they asked from me was they wanted I-9s on everybody. I guess to make sure they were legit workers, for the U.S. I don't know. That was what my bank. That was only the other weird thing that I thought my bank asked for that no one else did. And the only other thing I really want to add to this is it's been said. I used to complain when my banker would call me up every 3-4 months. Hey, how's things going? Do you need any money? And I'm like, dude, if I needed something, I call you. And I used to complain, but I understand now that was just him building a relationship. Yeah. And I'm glad we had that relationship. And when he calls in the future, I will not complain.
Yeah, one of the things that we forget is that bankers make money when they sell money.
That's
and,
it.
Yep.
and he was just cold calling you, Keith. He was doing-
Sometimes you just don't like to be bothered, but I look at it now that, he built the relationship. And so when push came to shove, I had a name, I had a phone number, I had somebody I could call, and he was in my court now working hard. And he did submit everything. He told me they were working till midnight on Friday. They came back in Saturday, started at 7. It was about 2:00. I had been approved by the bank and sent off to the SBA. Now he said I should see the money Tuesday or Wednesday. Before I came on this cast, I checked my bank account. It's not there. Although I did have an email from the bank, and I thought that might be it, but it wasn't. So we'll see. He said Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know. Like John said, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, Randy Pickering. Hey, good to have you, Randy. You don't find bankers reaching out to the businesses very often. Usually it's the other way around. My thought to you right now, if we can learn anything from this, why don't you call your banker when this dust settles and say, give them a tour of your business. I think you could dazzle that banker with all the technology that you have and work on, and the systems and the tools and the equipment and the team that you've developed. And I think, they may love and respect you because you're a client of theirs and they make money from you. That's the way that in an instant, Keith, like you say, I need money right now. Or do you have any plans for growth? You want to expand, you want to build this or do that. It all comes from having a real quality financial statement, strong business, and a great relationship with your banker, and a good CPA. Am I right, gang?
For sure.
That's right.
There's two brief points I want to make about banking. We always, in our business, we always say, look, we add value. We're a little more expensive than other shops, than chains, but here's why you should come to us. But at the same time, you have shops that went to Wells Fargo, went to Citibank because they gave them the cheapest deal. They gave them the lowest fees. And I'm seeing comments from a lot of the people who are with the mega banks saying I have nobody to talk to. They're jammed up.
Yeah.
Right. Versus going to a regional or a community bank, dealing with an actual person, paying a quarter point more on that loan, paying a little bit higher fees, account maintenance fees that really add up to not much money, but having an actual person on the other end to talk to, especially in a time like this. So, quality over cheap service. The other thing is, I often see this in the discussion groups of people who say, I have no debt. I do everything out of cash. And this is their point of pride. That's great. If you can do that. But keep in mind, Apple as a company, they have anywhere between 100 and 200 billion in cash sitting in their accounts at any given time. And they have about $90 billion in debt. So what does that tell you? A little bit of debt is not a bad thing. And this is an instance, if you have a commercial loan out with a bank right now, that bank is much more likely to service you for this PPP, because they're also looking at like, you're going to get PPP money. They want you to stay in business.
That's right. They want you to keep paying your loan. I have a couple things, Carmen, when you get a second.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I wanted to talk, point back on what Kareem was saying about going to your local areas. Because, and if anybody's listening in Phoenix, I'm going to give you the what we have here. It's called ArizonaTogether.org. It's Governor Ducey. It's his keeping in contact with his people of Arizona. So if you're in Arizona, that's what it is. But if you are living elsewhere, which a lot of people listening are, figure out who what your local source is, because like you were saying, I think they're going to have some funds that might be available to the local people, but it also gives you up-to-date information about how your governor kind of the, temperature gauge on what he's doing for your small businesses. Governor Ducey took a lot of flack because he wasn't closing many of the small businesses, and he took it, on the chin for that. But I feel like he's looking out for his background is small business, and he's looking out for those. And I hope in your area the same is true. The other thing I wanted to just pass along was this morning I got an email. WorldPac is having up to date, up to minute, because it's changing all the time. They're having some training. So I will put that however you want me to get that out to the people listening today. Carm, you just let me know, but I'm sure they could probably go to WorldPac.
Send me a link to that. I know they're starting tonight. They're starting tonight.
Yes, that's
and
right.
They're going to have
Eastern time.
8 o'clock Eastern tonight, Monday through Friday, starting today, Tuesday. Looks like they've got some really good stuff planned. Yeah, I actually spoke to them last week about it. Pretty excited to see that they're doing that. And so many other suppliers are stepping to the plate, more webinars than ever. I mean, it's the new normal. We're going to, I think, find a different way to do business, which is why tomorrow's Carmcast, I think, is so interesting, the virtual service advisor. And I don't want to steal the thunder for tomorrow's show, but I think there's a brand new and exciting way to take pressure off of our front counters by having that virtual service advisor on staff working out of their home office. One of the things that I kind of heard from this group, I think there's going to be a brand new found respect for small businesses in America today, than ever before. As much as corporate America kind of rules with an iron fist, if you will, and has the ear of everyone in Washington, I think this is so much about surviving our local communities than anything, because when the ban is lifted, we're going to go local. I mean, right away. I mean, that's where we're going to go. We're not going to wait. We're not going to get on the internet and shop. We could be doing that right now. But when we break out, we want our favorite restaurant and our salon, and we want these places to be open, and we want them to survive. And as well as we want all this to happen here for the aftermarket. A comment here from David Cameron, going back to that whole payroll thing and the money that John Bridgewater got, and maybe answered here. It's net of what you pay W-2 employees plus state and local taxes, not payroll, Social Security, not Fed taxes paid, only net plus local and state taxes. So that kind of makes sense, John. So, again, I'm not sure. John's going to be on tomorrow. Maybe he can share what he knows about that. But hey, look at everyone. We're in this thing for about a half hour now. It was great. There was a tremendous amount of wisdom and knowledge shared, and great banter on Facebook and of course YouTube. So thank you all for being here. Kelly Weatherby from Weatherby out in Mesa, Arizona. Andy Bishop from Midwest Performance Cars in Chicago. Keith Katz from Quality Service Center, York, PA. And Kareem Morsley from Winkler Automotive, Gaithersburg, Maryland. Excellent job. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Happy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good luck,
Good luck, everybody.
Yes.